pay for performance models continuing? So not just getting a meeting or an appointment or a lead, but actually getting a closed sale and tying that revenue back to, or having the traditional customers paying on a closed piece of business that's directly trackable. Is that a trend that's continuing too? Or
ultimately the problem is most marketers do not know how to track that. So what happens is, if you're Procter & Gamble, you do not know how to track an ad to the purchase of Tide. You want to think you do, but you really do not, right? You can know what percentage of your revenue is sales and marketing spend and how to control that as a percentage of revenue and how to build to that. But at the end of the day, all marketing ties back to a cost per acquisition. All of it, whether you're Tide or whether you're a wireless company or you're an online education company, whatever you're doing, it's all an arbitrage back to that. They just have to figure out how that arbitrage works. Companies like ours, where we actually deploy our own capital to run the marketing for our advertising partners, and they pay us per either transaction, per lead, per click. We get paid kind of in a lot of different ways.
Are you getting paid per sale yet?
We do. We have a component of our business which is pay per sale. And by the way, it's my favorite component, because when you talk about metrics orientation, there's nothing better. Right. It's also, interestingly enough, our highest margin component of our business.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, because we can afford to wait the 2-3 months from a balance sheet perspective till that transaction happens. A lot of companies cannot. So
how do you price that? Very curious, especially on a new program where you don't have data, you don't have historicals. How do you price a pay-per-performance model?
The greatest thing about the internet is the ability to test. So traditionally, when we sit down with an advertising partner, we'll say, I have no idea if this is the right price. I have no idea if this is going to work, but I'm willing to take the risk if you are. We'll deploy 100% of our own capital to create customers for you, and if we've priced it wrong, we'll eat it, but we're going to come back to you and tell you what we really need at the end of this test. We've actually come back and lowered price to people. Said, literally, we can do this at a 50% margin. We don't tell them that. But we could do this at a 50% gross margin without having to do this. And then we see them double or triple spend.
And you have a back-end sort of business intelligence engine that's crunching the numbers so that you're able to collect the data and efficiently allocate to the right databases, et cetera?
Yeah, we have a full-time group called our Business Intelligence Group, which is run by a bunch of MIT people that literally sit there on screens and track this stuff all day. Not my job, though.
So the connection between Civis and...
By the way, it's Cavis.
Cavis. It's C-A-I-V-I-S. Cavis. So the connection... By the way, what does it... Why Cavis?
I used to tell... When I first started, I was like, oh, it stands for Consolidating Acquisition of the Internet Power, vis being the Latin word for power. It's really Carter, Amelia, and Isabel, which are my kids' names. I just kind of made it up. Sounded good at the time.
Neat. That's very neat.
That's worked for us so far.
Yeah. And so Cavis... The connection between Cavis and Excel.
So interestingly enough, Excel was Cavis. So we started Cavis on this principle that we were going to buy these small to mid-sized companies and we were going to build them and grow them. We did it inside of what was actually called Cavis 1. We're now on Cavis 3. Cavis 1, we did a fairly, we did actually a recapitalization with Capital One Bank locally and worked with Adam and Brian, who are incredible partners for us. When we did that first recap, it was very tax inefficient because you had a parent company and the parent company would have had to pay tax, and then when we distributed the tax to effectively we have 3 main partners, a guy named John Scully, who was the CEO of Apple and Pepsi, who was vice chairman of Infonic, as vice chairman of Cavis, Bill Lammin, who runs CMS, and myself. We're the only 3 board members for the first number of years. We actually merged XL Marketing Corp up into Cavis 1, renamed it Cavis 1 so we could distribute the money with 1 layer of tax instead of 2. Then we created Cavis 2, and we spun our non-XL marketing assets. We have 4 or 5 other businesses, including one we bought from Michael called DealPal before we then created, he created Endeavor DC, and we became one of his partners and shareholders, and I went on his board. So that's what Cavis 2 does. And then we had to reformat Cavis 2 because we didn't want to be buying companies in competition with XL Marketing Corp. It made no sense. So we turned that more into an investment and development vehicle, which is doing exceptionally well, and surprisingly. And what we do is we invest in companies that we believe will get value out of XL Marketing Corp's massive marketing power. So we'll invest, and then we'll bring those companies into XL Marketing Corp, and it's worked out very well synergistic. So we can invest in a company and grow them 5, 6, 7 times very, very quickly by using that marketing power. And that's really what Cavis does today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a vertically integrated model. It's very cool. Is Cavis 2 a limited partnership, or is it more of a corporation?
It's actually a corporation.
Capital?
It's a good question. We do have a limited partnership too, not to get too complex for the partners, but Cavis 2 is a corporation because we traditionally, when we invest in a company or buy in a company, we either want to give them stock in our company or take stock in their company, and it just works much better to do that with a corporation than to be issuing shares in a limited partnership or units in a limited partnership.
Right. Can you talk about John Scully for
I
a second?